Shortly after midnight, on November 17th, 1978, a teenage boy showed up late to his shift at Burger Chef in Speedway, Indiana. As he pulled in the driveway, the lights were still on, so he figured his co-workers were still in the process of cleaning up after the day's work. He went around back and he noticed the doors were wide open, which he thought was a little strange, but he thought, well, maybe somebody forgot to close the door on the way in. Who knows? He didn't really think too much of it. As he entered, he became a little bit more alarmed because nobody was in the restaurant. That's odd, somebody should be in there. Then he noticed that the cash register drawers were pulled out and just thrown on the ground. Well, something must have happened that the cash register shouldn't be on the floor. Brian decided to call his boss, who came to the store, and he quickly realized that $581 was missing from the till. Brian and his boss decided, well, maybe the 4 teens that were working that night stole the money and decided to go on a joyride around town, have fun. They're all young kids, have a couple extra $100 in their hands. Or who knows, maybe the teens just disappeared in thin air along with his money. But before we get into more details about this case, we have to get into who the teens were that were working that night that went missing. 16-year-old Daniel Davis was born on September 6, 1962. He was a member of the Aladdin Club, enjoyed photography, and planned of joining the Air Force after high school. He was described as being quiet and kept his circle of friends small. He had just started working at Burger Chef less than a month before this disappearance happened. 16-year-old Mark Sylvester Flemmonds was born on December 31st, 1961. He went to Speedway, Indiana high school and was described as being funny, friendly, and was a member of his high school band. In his yearbook, his classmates remembered his smiling face and laughing eyes, the jokes he told, and how he cheered up others. His parents were Jehovah's Witnesses, and according to a friend, Mark and his siblings rarely ventured outside of his apartment complex, except to go to school and work. 17-year-old Ruth Ellen Shelton was born on December 19, 1960. Ruth was on the honor roll. Her family described her as being incredibly intelligent and ambitious. She had aspirations of becoming a computer scientist and was attending what is now the University of Indianapolis to earn early college credits. 20-year-old Jayne Friedt was born on May 5th, 1958. Jayne was an assistant manager for the Burger Chef restaurant and recently transferred to the Speedway location after working at another Burger Chef location for 3 years. Jayne was known for being involved in many activities and was considered a hard worker, sometimes working 52 hours a week. Brian called 911, but the police also assumed that the kids were just playing hooky from work and would show up soon. That seemed like the most probable scenario since the kids left their purses, bags, wallets behind, so Brian and his boss and the police all just assumed somebody would show up soon and explain what had happened. Since the restaurant wasn't considered a crime scene, the police never processed it as one at first, and so they said it was okay to resume business the next day. So the restaurant got cleaned along with any fingerprints or any evidence there could be, and this would play a very detrimental role for the case. Jayne's 1974 white Chevrolet Vega would later be found the next day a mile and a half away near West 15th Street. 2 days after the assumed joyride, on November 19th, the bodies of 4 teens were found in a rural area of Johnson County. Ruth and Daniel were shot, Jayne was stabbed to death, while Mark died of blunt force trauma and also asphyxiation. They were all still wearing their Burger Chef uniforms. Clearly this wasn't just a joyride like everybody had expected at first, so now everybody had a bunch of questions. Did they know their attacker? Who was it? And if it was just a robbery, Why didn't they take the wallets that were left on the table? Like, was this personal? Maybe they took the money to pretend like it was just a robbery. The FBI's first suspect was a former employee who had been officially fired but had not yet been notified of that. He was scheduled to work at 10 p.m. on the night of the murders, but he didn't show up until after just midnight. Brian and the suspect arrived around the same time, just as Brian discovered the empty restaurant. Brian let the suspect know that he was going to call the police, resulting in the suspect quickly leaving. That's pretty suspicious. Another witness came forward named Kirk Thomas. He said he was walking towards the restaurant when he saw two men behind the counter, but by the time he reached the restaurant, they were both gone. There are also records that Jayne had been receiving harassing and obscene phone calls days and even weeks before the murders happened. During the past year, there was also a crew of people that were going around robbing local restaurants, so police also theorized that maybe this crew had something to do with it, since it kind of seemed along the lines of their field of expertise. But who knows, maybe the robbery might have went wrong, and maybe they just murdered the 14 so they didn't have any witnesses. As of today, there are no current leads as to who murdered these young people, and it still remains a cold case file. It's heavily due to the possible evidence, such as fingerprints or shoe prints being destroyed with Burger Chef employees cleaning up the restaurant, and there being no witnesses with valuable information. Hopefully, with the advancements of forensic science, we can find the murderers of these 14s and bring some peace to the family. May Daniel, Mark, Ruth, and Jayne rest in peace, and their families have my deepest condolences. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching.